Chapter 19. Trespasser. Clancy and Caroline, still face to face, then heard two pistol rounds reverberate upon the water, echoing in waves. The cracks of gunshots skipped like ricochets. So they got to their feet in quite a hurry. He said, "Bet someone got himself a turkey." She said, "Perhaps a trespasser was caught. 1 minute they was swimming next to the shot." He rolled his eyes and said to her, "Them shots was way down river," Clancy pointed, "not where we's a-going to, so don't be scared." He looked for Boone. "Won't no one find us there?" The two set forth to find the alcove beach, and boundless Boone who'd never known a leash. Clancy cupped his hands that amplified his trilling whistles and calls he cried. "Come on now, Boone!" Clancy listened on, but when the dog at first did not respond, his face grew paler than a rising moon. He said, "I hope that turkey wasn't Boone." "Perhaps you shouldn't call for all to hear. You wouldn't want to catch the shooter's ear." "As long as Boone's with us, then we'll be fine. But do you worry like this all the time?" She answered, "No, I only worry when I'm with a boy I hardly know, and then we trespass somewhere that we're not allowed, followed by 2 gunshots ringing loud." The girl's retort made Clancy smile and say, "Don't fret, them gunshots wasn't aimed our way, 'cause we ain't doing nothing wrong at all. Come on now, Boone!" He whistled out a call. Despite the desperation in his tone, he said, "He probably found himself a bone. Come on now, Boone, old boy!" There was no sign. She said consolingly, "I'm sure he's fine." A silent stillness spread throughout the trees, as if the branches hushed their rustling leaves. Even the Etowah refrained its speech, while Clancy surveyed up and down the beach. He cupped his hands and blew with all his breath, a whistle, till he had nothing left. His hopeful face turned down with disbelief. Then all at once it changed to pure relief. "Well, here he come. No need to fret no more." Boone ran along the river bank and shore. He readied for how Boone would like to greet. His kicking paws could knock him off his feet. "Get down, boy, down! Golly, your paws is muddy. How about we take you swimming, huh, old buddy?" Boone's whimpers rose like high notes on a scale. Excitement spun him like he chased his tail. Clancy squatted, scratched him by the head, then gripped him by his scruff before he said, "You listen good. Next time I call, you come, you hear? You had me worried, dadgum." Boone's rough but slimy tongue just flicked his nose, so Clancy flinched while waving as he rose. Boone jumped again. "Get down, golly, you rake! You must have got in something made you stink. An old dead fish or something. Smell like fish. How about you give old Caroline a kiss?" She said, "No, thank you, Boone, dare I say. I've had enough excitement for a day." Clancy pointed through a clearing. "See that hill? That Pine Mountain." He stopped, completely still, then said, "It Pine Mountain on a map, but Jake and me, we didn't call it that. You see that red oak up there on the end? We'd hunt up on that hill, and we'd pretend that we was Daniel and Davy hunting game. We'd set and rest up on that overhang." Across the river on the western face, she saw the red oak, sprawling, out of place, among the pines that climbed the granite steep. The far-off place seemed in a finger's reach. Continuing, he said, "Some trees is meant for leaning on when you is hot and spent. We'd toss our shirts and hats aside. It seemed that spot could always call a cooler breeze. I felt just like a man to pal around with Jake." He paused. "I probably slowed him down, but still he'd never say it troubled him. He'd say, 'Get us a deer, then we can swim.' We'd hardly ever get a whitetail, though. Rabbits, squirrels, quail, whatever'd show. We'd shoot them foxes, too, but not for meat. Can't eat no fox, they awful things to eat. We wouldn't even shoot 'em for they hide. With foxes near, they'd clear a mountainside and spoil the hunt, like fishing a dry lake. And no one hated foxes more than Jake. One day, a day just like 100 more, something happened and sorta ended the war. We settin' there, just leaning against the tree. A fox come by and stood not far from me. I grabbed my rifle, lined that critter up, but he just stared at me and didn't budge. I seen no fear within that fox's eye, just tiredness of barely getting by. Jake put his hand on mine and said, "Let him go." And so I lowered that rifle down real slow. We watched the fox bound off into the brush. Jake looked at me and said, "Life's hard enough." Jake grabbed his pocket knife and started to carve the letters F and P into the bark. Fox Point. A sweet nostalgia smoothed his face. And ever since, it's what we called the place. So when we walk this trail and get right here, where trees is open and you can see it clear, we'd call out Fox Point. And nobody knew what we was talking about, except us two. "Now 3, said Caroline. "Except us 3. I'm glad you shared that memory with me. I'll treasure it." She hooked her arm to his, and then she pointed. "Fox Point! There it is!" They followed down the ever-widening trail and found the twins mud-bugging with a pail. As if a pair of hunting herons, they would plunge their stealthy hands to grab their prey. "I reckon that y'all be swimming here," said Clancy, as the Mories looked with sheer surprise, because the last thing in the world they ever thought to see there was a girl. They felt like Adam in their shirtlessness, as she was blushing in her nervousness, averting eyes that never saw such skin, her stomach spun with guilt for such a sin. When Terence saw the girl, he puffed his chest and widened out his shoulders to look his best. He grabbed the heavy pail to flex his arm and smiled, tapping into natural charm. Thomas said, "The mud buggin's good. Y'all could catch a potful, bet you could." But Terence said, "I catch the whopper, though. His pincher darn near costed me a toe." Terence reached into the metal pail and grabbed the biggest one above its tail. The crayfish thrashed. Its tail began to curl. With outstretched arm he jousted toward the girl. Its desperate legs were waving in the air, with open claws prepared to pinch and tear. The closer Terence got to Caroline, the more the girl had seemed to lose her spine. Her gasp was long and loud in utter horror when Terence lunged and thrust the crayfish toward her. Retreating fast, she curled around a tree as if he held a kraken from the sea. He said in jest, "Here's all you need to know. Most all its scariness is just for show. This claw right here is lever A. You see this big un here? That's lever B." The boy erupted, pleased with his own humor, but she was unamused as fear consumed her. He was offended by her lack of laughter and saw her as his enemy thereafter. Clancy said, "You leave her be, you twit! You see she's scared. Don't make it worser. Quit." "You quit. Should have never brought no townie here. Your head's a mess, Macree. Ain't thinking clear." Terence turned back to the girl. "Before I let some townie swim here at my shore, you's got to show that you's one of us, and hold this mud bug, but without no fuss." His arm went out again. "Just take a hold." But Thomas said to him, "Well, ain't you bold? This shore is yours? You never lift a hand to clear the trail or shovel any sand." Terence turned and said, "That bull ain't true." "Is too." "To heck it ain't." "Don't start, you two." But Terence threw the crayfish at his twin, then ran and drove his shoulder into him. The crayfish slipped back in the Etowah, while Tom and Terence grappled with their claws. Boone began to bark with all his might, unsure if it was playtime or a fight. So Clancy said, while pushing Boone, "Get back!" and added a directing backside smack. The barking dog was a distracting noise, as Clancy rushed to separate the boys. The sand, like dough upon a rolling pin, was sticking to their dampened drawers and skin. But Thomas's strength eventually prevailed, a headlock hold, as Terence wildly flailed. When Thomas elbow-choked his gullet, Terry became as crimson as a ripe choked cherry. So Clancy tried to free him from the grasp, while Terry gasped, much like a gulping bass. Relentless barking turned into a yelp, as if the dog were crying out for help. And Clancy saw the twins were stilled with fear, as if an apparition had appeared. So quickly Clancy spun his worried head, suspecting that his dog was laying dead. Instead, a sight that lifts the smallest hair, he saw the angry deacon standing there.